Good morning and welcome to the fourth edition of the Supply Chain Management 101 series by the Institute of Supply Chain Management. For people who have attended the previous sessions, you would be aware that we covered an holistic overview of supply chain management, and then we went into inventory and warehousing. Today we will look at transportation as a subject. Now, before I go that, I would like to tell you why is it that the Institute of Supply Chain Management is doing this, and I would also like to tell you what is it that the Institute of Supply Chain Management stands for. Now, the Institute of Supply Chain Management is a education, training, research, consulting, and events organization. We are into three main verticals. If you look at it, I've put it into three main verticals. One is our education and certification as activity. The second is our research, consulting, and mentoring. We do research in the areas of supply chain management. We consult in the area of supply chain management. And we also provide senior level support for mentoring of senior supply chain officers. The third wing of us, which is the event wing, has two major aspects to it. One of them is what we call as our webinar and roundtables, where we will organize contemporary webinars, roundtables, events where we used to have a lot of events, but thanks to COVID, it has all moved online now. But once COVID recedes, we'll be back to our events. And the third offering from us is our knowledge portal called sempro-knowledge.in, where there is a collection of very interesting articles on the areas of supply chain management, demand planning, warehousing, technology. So I would again request you to note this down, sempro-knowledge.in, and please visit sempro-knowledge.in so that you can take advantage of what we are offering. Now, the first vertical, which is the education, certification, training, I would like to spend a few moments in it, 2 or 3 minutes on it, because that's what we are here for today, to understand what supply chain management is. And I'm telling you why is it that the Institute of Supply Chain Management is a leading institute in this particular domain. Now, what we offer is we offer a long-term certification called the Executive Program in Supply Chain Management. Now, the Executive Program in Supply Chain Management is one of the very few programs which are contemporary, which bring in technology, which focus on agility, reflexivity, and responsiveness in supply chains. So it's a very contemporary kind of a curriculum which has been updated post-COVID, and therefore reflects the post-COVID realities, and it is aimed at preparing supply chain executives who have in-depth knowledge of what it takes to run a supply chain going forward. We offer a short-term certification called Certified Supply Chain Manager, where we use, this is more for people who want to have a quick overview of what is it that supply chain in the changed world is going to look like. So we are going to look at creating conceptual frameworks for resilient and sustainable supply chains, which will be what people today will want to look at. This course starts on the 25th of July. We have a program on demand planning and forecasting called the Certified Demand Planning and Forecasting Professional. This program is offered to people who want to specialize in demand planning, and you will find a handout of this in our handout section. So if there is this handout here, you will find all the brochures for you there. You can download it or we can send it to you. Now, I would like to have a small poll now. I essentially want to understand what area of supply chain are you interested in. So if you could kindly fill this up 30 seconds. This is to let us also understand which areas of supply chain are people looking at, and also probably guide you into saying that what other areas could you look at. So if you could fill this in quickly, it will help us drive the discussion in a nice way. Yes. Thank you very much. 88% of you have voted for supply chain, 12% for transportation, and no one has chosen warehousing. Warehousing is not that bad. It's very important for people to also get into warehousing. We have another certification. This is more for called the Certified Supply Chain Leader, which is, we have actually launched this program on the 4th of July. The first batch is on. The next batch is on September 19th. This is again a very in-depth look at some of the major aspects of supply chain which are going to undergo a change. This is more for supply chain leaders who have at least 4 to 5 years of experience within the supply chain domain. This program will start in September, and all these programs are available as virtual classroom sessions. EPSCM is also available to you as an offline class, which means you can do it on a self-paced learning, or you could also do it as an in-company training. Some of the important start dates: R4 19th September, EPSCM 30th August, CSCM 25th July, CDPFP 15th August. We have an advisory council consisting of Dr. John Gatorna, who is Executive Chairman of Gatorna Alignment, Dr. Rakesh Singh from Institute of Supply Chain Management, Dr. Mahendra Singh, who is former Executive Director at MIT Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Supply Chain Department, Kalpesh Pathak from Fiat, and Dr. Rakesh Sinha, who was formerly CEO of Godrej Consumer Products Limited. These are the list of our faculty. You have the first few names that you see are all academicians. From Dr. Rakesh Singh to Rajiv Sethi, we are all academicians, while the other names are all practitioners from the industry who would be helping us in mentoring and doing and taking classes. A few of our customers, you will find a lot of big names out there. We would like to add your companies also wherever you're working. So if you have anyone, if your companies would like to have training in supply chain management, please pass on our reference to your HR division. It will be great help to us. Tell them that this institute also does training in supply chain management. As I said, we have a couple of initiatives. The knowledge portal, which is SCM Pro Knowledge, scmpro-knowledge.in. We have SCM Pro Forums, which does the events, roundtables, webinars. And we have a demand planning academy, which is focused only on demand planning and forecasting. The CDPFP is a part of the demand planning academy. And this is where you can find us. We are on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on SCM Pro Forums and SCM Pro Knowledge. In fact, you should go to SCM Pro YouTube and you can see videos of all our events there. Please search on YouTube ISCM SCM Pro. You will get a lot of videos of our events. Right. With that, let's start our today's session, which is on transportation. Now, before I start, I would like to tell you that if you have any questions or doubts, we have on your right hand of your screen, you have a panel where there is something called as questions. Now, if you can type your questions in this, and I will be able to get it. And whenever you type it, and if it is relevant to the topic that we are discussing, we will take it up immediately. All the other questions, we will take it up at the end of the session. So please keep your questions relevant to transportation. And let us start our exploration of the third facet of supply chain management, which is transportation. Now, I would like if any one of you could quickly type in and send me, what do you understand by transportation? Few seconds. If anyone can. Yes, I will read it out. Anyone? You can type it out in questions. Okay. Movement of goods from one location to another, says Dhanesh Panse. Movement of material from one place to another, says Sunil Pandey. Movement of goods from one location to another, says Bharadwaj. Exactly. Transferring goods from consignor to consignee with stipulated time, says Arun Kumar. Right. So you have got the gist of what transportation is. Now let us look at transportation from a supply chain perspective, right? I will first give you some of the macro pictures, and then we will go down into what are the various individual elements that compose of transportation. Some of the things like what are the strengths and weaknesses of different transportation modes, what is this role of infrastructure. Yeah. Now, if you look at it, you've often heard this term that the logistics cost in India is close to 14% of the GDP. What we have here is a graph which shows what is the cost, logistic cost as a percentage of GDP, and what stage of economic development is the country is in. So if you look at countries like Singapore, Australia, Canada, United States, Finland, Japan, France, all of them are developed economies, and you will see that their cost is below 10%. In some cases like United States, it's around 9% of the GDP. While India comes here, which is close to 13.5% of the GDP. We have other countries ahead of us. We have Peru, Brazil, Indonesia, Vietnam, who are much higher as a percentage of GDP. The government of India today has got a mission to reduce this by at least a couple of percentage points. Right? So we want to reduce the cost of transportation and logistics as a percentage of our GDP. We can do it by two ways. We can make our GDP so high that the percentage automatically comes down, or we can try and reduce the cost of logistics in our economy. Now, if you look at the various stages and where transportation fits in, okay, so you have this. We in the first section we saw what supply chain was. We saw that it comes from raw materials, which is at this stage, to the market or the consumer, which is essentially manufacturing, distribution, and the market. So we saw that in our first phase, and then we saw the warehousing, where we said that there are raw material inventory, the work in progress inventory, the finished good inventory, and finally the store inventory. So how this also moves, we saw. Today we are seeing how does this move from the raw material stage to the market stage, right? So you have from the raw material to the manufacturing assembly is essentially bulk shipping. So you'll have rail as a one way of it. The other one is road. Now, developed economies depend on rail, while in India, rail movement is not that high. Still, road is the preferred mode. And if you're looking at an international kind of a scenario, then the maritime transport comes in, where you'll have to do some shipping. So you'll have a rail which takes it, or a road truck which takes it to a port. From the port, it goes to the next port. And from that port, it goes back to the market, again by road or by rail. So that is how transportation normally gets organized. Now let us look at the various stages in the supply chain and how the information flows within this supply chain. Now, one of the major problems that we have in India in the area of transportation is that once the goods leaves the factory or the warehouse, till it reaches the location, we have really no actual control on it or visibility of it. You might argue saying that we have a lot of GPS enabled trucks, so therefore we should be able to see through the GPS where the truck actually is. Most trucks in India still do not have GPS. It's only the larger organized players who have GPS monitored trucks. The smaller players don't have GPS on their trucks because they consider it as a cost. And more interestingly, there was a study done between Mumbai to Delhi. Okay, between Mumbai and Delhi, they were evaluating the GPS blind spots. And do you know how many GPS blind spots were found? Any guess? How many GPS blind spots were there between Mumbai and there were more than 1,300 blind spots between Mumbai and Delhi for the GPS, at which point you will not be able to see your truck. So there are, on the entire journey, which is around 13, which I think it's Mumbai Delhi is around 1,700 kilometers odd, which essentially says almost every kilometer there is a blind spot coming up. And therefore, this information flow becomes very critical for us. And knowing when a truck is arriving also will help you, because you need to plan for unloading the truck. It cannot so happen that suddenly somebody comes and stands at your door and says, "Saab, gaadi aa gaya, abhi khali karo." That's not the way you want to plan it, because when you're unloading material, it has to be done in a systematic manner and be stored. For example, if you're doing it in a warehouse, in your warehouse, you will need the dock free so that the truck can come into the dock. Otherwise, the truck will have to wait. Now, like in any other mode, for example, when we looked at inventories, there in any decision making, there are three aspects. One is a strategic aspect, there's a tactical aspect, and an operational aspect. Now, operational is day to day, tactical is medium term, week, month to a week, and strategic is long term. So if we're looking at inventory, my strategic decision making in inventory is, where do I keep my inventory? That's a very strategic decision, because you have to hire a warehouse space, you have to see if it is near a market, if it will service you, the costs, etc. And what are the inventory control policies? These are strategic. Safety stock level becomes your tactical, which means in case of a surge in demand, how much extra stock should I keep? And your day-to-day operation is, from the inventory, how much do I keep sending out? While in warehousing, the strategic are what kind of equipment that you will buy, what kind of a warehouse will you want, what kind of a layout will you want. Do you want a warehouse which will go 13 meters, which means you'll have to erect the storage equipments there and buy in modern storage equipment and reach trucks which will take them goods right up, which means your flooring has to be very good. So these are strategic decisions. Or do you want only a floor storage, which means you can just keep everything on the floor? The tactical aspect is, out of the space that I have hired, how much am I utilizing? Am I utilizing 100%? Am I using only 50%? That is something that I need to worry about. And my operational aspect is, how do I pick an order? How do I keep put away? These are my operational aspects for warehouse. When it comes to transportation, the strategic aspects are, what mode do I select? Right? We have multiple modes by which you can transport goods. You have road, you have rail, you have the waterways, you have air, and then you have pipeline, where some people use. Pipeline and conveyor belts are also used in some sections. So you have multiple modes of transportation. Which one do I choose is a strategic decision. The tactical one is, how much do I need this? Do I keep buying it, or do I keep hiring it for my search. For example, we all understand that in India there are two seasons. Essentially, we have the busy season, which is during the festival, and then we have a slack season when there is less of demand. And during the busy season, do I create my infrastructure for the busy season or for the lean season? That's a tactical decision. And the operational aspect of transportation is the actual thing of loading a truck and sending it out. And here again, there are huge inefficiencies in our operations. This is where you can see a lot of significant cost savings happening if you can do your dispatches very nicely. Now, I think during the supply chain initiative, I did tell you that Hindustan Coca-Cola at one point in time had a time lapse of 8 hours from the time the truck reaches its yard to the time it loads and goes out, which they reduced it to half an hour. And now they are looking at 15 minutes. So the truck comes in 15 minutes time, it is filled and dispatched. Now think of it from the driver perspective and from the truck owner perspective. The driver and truck owner will be very happy if the truck is on the road moving. That's when it makes them money. The driver doesn't want to stand in your yard and wait for you to load, unload. So these are things which will make our operational efficiencies good, and therefore we will be able to get reduction in cost. Here is how I have compared the transportation infrastructure in emerging nations and developed nations. We are somewhere in the emerging nations below, at the lower end of it. China is slightly ahead of us. For all its great things, China is not in one of the leading segments when it comes to transportation efficiency. Now, I want to start with looking at transportation also in this perspective. We talked about supply chain costs in the first session. Now, if I were to look at logistics, not the entire supply chain, just the logistics part of it, which is essentially transportation and warehousing. If I were to look at transportation and warehousing as a percentage of my cost, transportation cost becomes 35% of my logistics cost. Inventory is 25%. Losses or damages around 14%. Packaging is 11%. Warehousing is 9%. And then problems caused by customers' shopping behavior, cancellation of orders, return of orders, etc., are around 6%, which is essentially your returns are around 6%. So when you look at your supply chain logistics cost, you will realize that transportation closely followed by inventory are two leading costs. We saw what inventory costs were and how we could look at inventory costs. Today we will look at transportation and see where does this transportation cost lie, right? We will also see how do we look at transportation costs in a different way so that we can reduce transportation costs, which is what almost everyone today is trying to do. Anyone who is in supply chain will understand that the first thing that people tell them is we want to reduce our transportation cost, right? Okay, Neha Nayak asked, what are the reasons of blind spots? Neha, the whole problem is that when we travel along the highway, what happens is that there are areas where there are GPS coverage is not very good, or the telecom connectivity is not very good, so it kind of drops off. This is the reason why mostly you have blind spots. We are trying to overcome them, but it will take a lot of time. How can packaging cost be a part of logistics cost? Jayashri, the problem is this. Packaging is done after the finished goods is manufactured, right? Therefore, it cannot be a part of my finished good cost. It has to now, the goods have been produced, and therefore there's that. Now, when I want to transport it, I need to fill it into cartons. I need to tape the cartons and then send it out. Or even if I'm sending, let's say, a truck, or if I'm sending a car, I need to put a cover on it so that it doesn't get scratched. Now, these things become a part of your logistics cost. We received packed goods as well. What will happen in, you're talking of a consumer receiving packed goods, Satyajit? In terms of in terms of that, what you receive as a consumer is different from the cost that the company has to incur in reaching the product to you. This cost is traditionally looked at as logistics cost, primarily because it is also meant to protect the product while in transit. So that's why we keep it as a part of logistics cost. Now let's look at what are the decisions that we need to make for transportation and who are the stakeholders in it. So what is the first one? Objective, and what is the objective for and considerations in moving my goods? Who are the stakeholders in this decision? How do I decide what mode of transport do I take, and then go back that you want to have in your transportation network. Now the reason I'm telling you is simple. Let's take two examples, right? Let's take Maruti as a car and let us take Rolls-Royce as a car. Both are meant for the same purpose. Maruti is the poor man's vehicle, while Rolls-Royce is there, 10 crore plus car. Now when we look at, if I am going to look at transportation as I'm a transportation leader in Maruti, my objective of looking at the transportation will be very different from my objective when I look at as a Rolls-Royce transportation guy. For a Rolls-Royce transportation guy, the condition in which the car reaches the end has to be pristine. It has to be no scratches. That anyone handling the entire transport, that entire consignment has to wear gloves and that covering on shoes so that they don't have any kind of dirt or smudge on the car. While when we look at how Maruti transported, most often they're also transported in trucks with multiple vehicles going into one truck. Rolls-Royce comes in a truck which is padded in its interior so that it doesn't scratch. So I need to understand what is the objective of this. Am I trying to do it at a low cost? Am I going to do it at a high service efficiency? If it is low cost, there is one mode of transport. If it is service efficiency, there is another mode of transport. So I'll need to balance them. The second thing that I need to understand is who are the people who are involved in this decision of taking a particular method of transportation. One is me and my organization, or rather the supply chain division within the organization, which is a stakeholder. The other stakeholders are the people who are running the transportation network. They are major stakeholders, right? The trucking company, the shipping company, the airlines, they are major stakeholders because they have conditions on which you can send your goods. Airlines have certain conditions of what kind of goods can be transported. Land, not too many conditions, but you need to make yourselves aware of how to transport a hazardous good, how to transport large products. So these you will need to be aware of. Rail, again, not too many conditions, but bulk movement of goods is possible. Therefore, what goods lend themselves to rail transport is something that we need to do. So there are these people who are running the network who are stakeholders, the company which is a stakeholder, the people who are actually moving the goods. The most obvious case is that of a driver. The driver today is a major stakeholder in transportation. You might have the best third-party logistics guy working for you. You might have, let's say, a TCI or a Safe Express or anyone who is very good as your logistics service provider. But at the end of the day, your truck and the goods are in the hands of the driver. And if the driver decides he will not go, there is nothing in the world that will move your transport. If the driver is unhappy with you, your goods are going to disappear. He will stop the truck somewhere, call up his owner and say, sir, I am leaving the truck here. I've got another job. I am moving. So the driver today is a huge, and the reason this is also because there's a huge amount of driver shortage today. For example, there are statistics which say that for every 1,000 trucks, there are around 750 drivers, which means 25% of trucks in the country are standing idle at any point in time because there are no drivers. We expect the situation to worsen by 2025. By 2025, we expect only 650 drivers for every 1,000 trucks, which means the number of trucks going to remain idle is going to be 35% of your fleet is going to be idle. So drivers today are a huge challenge to transportation, and most of our goods, around 80% of the goods in India, are through road transport. So we cannot do away with drivers. Therefore, we have a huge challenge on our hands. Now, I have a couple of slides which will explain the other factors. So let us look at those slides. So when I said I talked to you about your primary objective, product movement, including time and cost. If you want something to be sent urgently, what would you do? Airlift. If you want to send at the cheapest, you will do sea. Therefore, you need to figure out what is your objective, right? I also told you last time about McDonald's, who decided to have their inventory on the sea instead of on the land. So they will schedule ships to arrive in port once a week, so that they need to keep just 1 week's inventory in land and the rest of it be on the sea, in the ship which is coming towards the port. And then there are other issues that will come up, like, you know, having a fuel efficient truck. Therefore, those truck manufacturers are also a part of this whole discussion. So you have the shipper, which is the person who's sending the goods, the receiver. The receiver also has a huge say, at least in businesses, less so in consumer, in B2C. In B2B, the recipient can say, you will not send your goods by so and so airline, you will not send your goods by so and so shipping line, you will only use so and so road transport. They can go down to specify that. They become, because according to them, only these people can manage their shipment under the right conditions of transport. So they can also become huge stakeholders in the decision. And then there is a government, which will keep coming up with new legislations. For example, I'm not sure if you're aware, suddenly a year back, we came up with the axle load relaxation, which we said that any truck can load 25% more than what its axle load, stated axle load capacity is, which means you can go up to 25% of overloading on trucks. Earlier, we had banned overloading of trucks. Now we are allowed 25% overloading of trucks. Now, when you allow that, then the number of trucks required for a particular trip becomes low. You don't need too many trucks because you can load more goods into a single truck, which means cost per ton comes down. In logistics, in transportation, there is something called as PTPK, per ton per kilometer. That is how they measure the cost. What is the cost of transporting 1 ton of material for 1 kilometer? So if I can overload a truck, my PTPK comes down because I am sending 25% more goods in the same truck which uses the same fuel. So therefore my PTPK comes down. So these, and then now we are trying to bring in larger trucks. We are increasing the length and height of a truck so that more goods can be fitted in. So these things are again all government driven. They are also becoming major stakeholders in our decision. Modes. There's a huge amount of mode. So you have the air, you have the truck, the rail, the sea, inland, coastal, and pipeline. Pipeline is the smallest, which is nothing else but you put a pipe. Most often oil is the one which is used in pipeline, oil and water. We are having the Myanmar-India pipeline. Then we have the Iraq-India pipeline for moving gas along Turkmenistan, Pakistan to India. So these are pipeline. Benefit is once you lay down that, it will keep running. You need not have too much of cost involved in shipping the product. Air, you have smaller packages, and you have two kinds, either the dedicated freight planes, cargo planes, or in the belly of the passenger plane. Actually, a lot of passenger plane profits come from the goods that they transport, right? But the cost is going to be high. Truck, you have either you can send a full truckload, which is called as FTL or TL, and then a less than full truckload, which is called an LTL. And then you have a third service called courier service, which is essentially parcels. And within that, you have a huge range of trucks which you have a dry, you have a tanker, you have a flatbed. Flatbed is nothing else. You guys have seen those trailers with nothing else but there's no sides to it. Then you have a curtain instead of a container. You have a refrigerated container which is called as a reefer. You have a hopper which will tilt and throw the goods down, open top, or just the chassis, which is the open truck without even the flatbed behind it. In rail, you have a box car, flat car, so you have multiple types of transport there, trains there. In shipping, you have container shipping, liquid shipping, roll-on, roll-off. There is a dry bulk. So there are different kinds of shipping also there. And then the sea, you have barges. Essentially, in the Indian coastal, you will use barges. For example, if you look at the Varanasi to Bengal stretch of the Ganges, it is now become useful for inland transport. I think I did refer to this in my supply chain session, where we talked about now you'll have heard of terms 3PL, 4PL. This exactly is what the 3PL, 4PL is. It started from 1PL, where the owner produces and manages the logistics. So I have a truck. In the truck, I will dispatch. That is a 1PL. 2PL, I will have somebody else owning the truck. I will manufacture. I will take this truck from the market and say, okay, you take this material from here to there. In 3PL, I say I have to produce these goods. I go to a company and say, these are the goods I produce. These are the places where I want to send it to. You manage the whole process of sending it to wherever you want, wherever I want. In 2PL, I decide where you should run the truck. In 3PL, the 3PL decides how to transport it from my premises to my customer. 4PL, they also provide some kind of management of the entire supply chain and consulting, while 5PL, they look at e-commerce also as a part of their business. So you have 1PL to 5PL. Today, most of us are still in 2PL. Some of us are looking at 3PL. A lot of us are claiming to be 4PL. What is the future of transportation? I talked to 650 drivers and 25 for 1,000 trucks, which means 35% of my fleet is idle. And today you're all aware of the experiments that are happening for driverless trucks, right? The future will be driverless trucks even in India, not because of anything else, but because we don't have drivers. If we need to move our goods, we need drivers. Yes, for that the roads have to be better. We need to have dedicated cargo lanes. We need to have better trucks. All that is necessary. But just because drivers are not available, we will have to move to a driverless kind of a situation. And the way this transportation will move is that initially there will be a caravan of trucks moving. So the truck in front will be driven by a driver, while there will be 2 or 3 trucks behind, which will be an autonomous driving. It's more like, so the leading truck will decide the road and the speed, etc. The other trucks will follow the truck in front. That is, the convoy system is what initially it will start with, and then later on move into independent trucks with, now what you're seeing here, this is a Volvo truck which is driverless. So we will be seeing these kind of trucking happening where the driver is not there, therefore the cabin is not there, it becomes a very small thing, and there will be sensors all over and it will be doing the transportation. Driverless trucking will become part of it. The second aspect, the ship that you see here is also a driverless ship, a pilotless ship or crewless ship. This ship does not have any crew. In fact, Rolls-Royce has put out a video on their website, which you can see if you go to the Rolls-Royce website, about a crewless ship, where the ship will be loaded at the port. It will be programmed where it has to go. It will go without any crew on it. In case there is any problem, there is a self-diagnostic process within the ship, or there will be people sitting on shore who will diagnose what the problem is, and in case it needs immediate attention, they will divert it to the nearest port. So the entire shipping crew will disappear, and there will be people crewing ships without crew. Sorry. The other aspect that will come up is connected vehicle, which means every vehicle will be relaying information continuously through the Internet of Things, not only to its central command center, but to also other vehicles around it. You will need it when you need to go driverless. So each vehicle will be talking to the other vehicle and saying, okay, I am going to slow down, so everyone behind me slow down, or I am accelerating, everyone accelerate, or I am going to change lane, so please give me way. This connected vehicle is going to also become a reality. In fact, a lot of this technology is already there in some advanced passenger cars. You will have your Rolls-Royce and Mercedes-Benz having a lot of these features where you can change lanes and it will sense who is on the adjacent lane, etc. So the vehicles become connected, which also gives us a real-time visibility of where my vehicle is. So at the command center, I can know at what is the health of each of my components within the, for example, if you're driving a truck, suddenly the truck sends a message to the command center saying that so-and-so aspect or so-and-so tire of mine is on the verge of collapse. So the system then sends out a message to the driver saying that kindly proceed to the closest tire replacement area because your truck tire might deflate. You will get this kind of real-time information, making your transportation efficient. The future is also hugely going to be electric vehicles because of pollution concerns. Today, there's a huge requirement that we need to reduce our carbon footprint. You're all aware of the damages of climate change, and trucks are one of the biggest culprits when it comes to carbon emission. Ships are also carbon heavy. They burn some of the worst kind of fuel available, so they are hugely polluting. We need to reduce this, and therefore you will see a lot more of electric vehicles coming on, either in terms of road or rail. We'll be more moving towards electric. And then we will also look at things like drones which are coming in. People are experimenting. Today, the problem with drone is that the lifting capacity of a drone is very small. Therefore, it can only lift a small amount of goods. The second is that in cities like Mumbai, where the flats, most of them don't even have a balcony, there is very little place for a drone to come and drop your goods. So we'll need to work out some of those arrangements, but drones will become a way to go, especially when it comes to last mile connectivity in rural India, right? When there is there's a lack of infrastructure, then drones become the way forward. Any questions so far? Okay, there's a question by Wakar Ali. If we use third-party vehicle, then how to save cost? Wakar, the whole issue of going for a third party is a couple of things. One, you don't want to run a transportation division where you want to buy trucks and run your own trucks. So you want someone else to own those assets and use those assets. Second, for your own self, you might own trucks, but then you might not be fully utilizing them. In terms of let's say a third party, if you don't have business today, he will have business from someone else. Therefore, his trucks can keep moving. The second issue that comes up is in trucking, I charge you both ways. So I take my truck from Mumbai to Delhi, take the goods from Mumbai to Delhi, drop it off. And if I don't get a return load, I will charge you for the return fare. Therefore, the return fare becomes you bring the truck empty. That diesel cost is yours. So therefore, your cost becomes high. If I go to a 3PL, it is a 3PL's responsibility to ensure that he gets business from Delhi back to Bombay. It's not my responsibility. It is a 3PL's responsibility. Therefore, I need to only pay for one way. That is one way in which you will see a reduction in cost when it comes to a 3PL operation. The other way you can do it is in terms of it is not your core competency to run transportation, right? And therefore, a 3PL who is only focused on the transportation will be able to better serve or better manage the assets and reduce cost for himself, right? Any other question? We are at the end of the session. If there are no other questions, then probably we could wrap it up here. Are there any questions? I'm giving a couple of minutes to type in. Is there any thumb rule for calculating transport? Excellent question, Sunil Pandey. Let me share with you. In fact, there has been a couple of studies done in India also, which tells you what is the percentage of costs that are involved in transportation. There is a carriage by road index where we'll talk about an element. They call it freight, fuel, rubber, FR, E is for then there is expenses, I is for tolls, G. So what G is for government taxes, T is for taxes. So what they have done is roughly 60 to 65% of your transportation cost is fuel. Roughly 13% is air. There are expenses which are the bribes that you need to pay. You might say that with GST and abolition of toll nakas, bribes have gone down. No, bribes are still being given to policemen who can stop any truck at any point in time for no reason and delay your shipment. Therefore, every driver is given a certain amount of money as bribe money to pay the cops, which is, for example, I think it's around 10 to 15,000 rupees is what a trip from Mumbai to Delhi takes as bribes. If the driver saves it, it is his. Otherwise, it's an expense because there's no proof of it. He pockets the money. Fuel, there is also cost. Then there is tolls across the country. As you move, every toll that you pay is a tax to it. Your own internal expenses of the freight, this 3PL or the freighting, the transporter is an expense. So driver is an expense. A driver has got a salary plus he is given a daily allowance. These are the larger aspects of cost in a supply chain. Example of 4PL. 4PL exactly is also offering you consulting services. They will look at network optimization. They will look at how should you run your, where should your warehouses be located? What should be the shape and size of the warehouse? How can you reduce your warehouse footprints? So they do a lot of consulting work along with managing your supply chain operations. We don't have too many of them in this country. How do you differentiate defense supply chain versus corporate supply chain? Srinivas, essentially the difference between the defense supply chain and corporate is that defense supply chain will move when it is set to move, because you know what happens if it doesn't. while in corporate supply chain it's more profit oriented, and therefore the whole attitude and behavioral aspects are different. Other than that, the defense supply chain also needs to move into areas where there are very little road and infrastructure. Well, most of our corporate infrastructure is corporate transport is where infrastructure is at least the road is there. For a large scale, Satyajit asks, for a large scale operation, which is better? Outsourcing trucks are always outsourcing is better, because as I said, the return journey, who is going to manage? Atharva Rajhans, there was a point of respect exceeding the axle load by 25%. Won't it increase the risk of carrying goods in the transport? This is what the government has done. Primarily, they did it because fuel costs started going up, and it became unviable to run trucks with those reduced axle loads. So for the transporter to make some money, they have allowed increased axle load 25%. But you must remember that 25%, though it looks very big for you, in the past when there were no regulations, it used to be 100%, 150%. So today we don't allow 100% overloading. We allow only 25%, which they believe trucks can handle. After you want the cost transport of, okay, the cost breakup heads are essentially fuel, which is a diesel that you put in. The tire is a big cost in transportation. Expenses, the bribes that you pay. Government, the taxes that you pay the government related expenses when you buy the truck, etc. The investment or the finance that you have to put in, the EMIs that you have to pay, that becomes your expense. The salary paid to your driver and the other staff in your organization, that becomes a part of your transport cost. The toll becomes a part of your. So the breakup is the fuel. Oh yes, we can share the PPT with you. So it is fuel, expenses, investments, money that by way of various taxes, toll, and salary. These are the major costs. Optimum percent should it be? Satyajit, the way that we are moving towards is that we are trying to see if we can optimize the cost as a percentage of GDP. We can translate that also as, if I can say, up to 7% of my cost should be up to probably 9 or 10% of my product should be product cost should be my transportation cost. That's some thumb rule you can create. Thanks a lot. We have exceeded the time by 10 minutes in our question answer session. We will send you the recording of the session and also the PPTs for your reference. We will keep coming back to you with further episodes of the 101. Sunil, because since we have run out of time, probably I will do offline, because we have a time constraint here attending this session. And please do visit our website, iscmindia.com. Please also visit scmproindia.com, scmproknowledge.in. Please also do visit SCMPro forums. These are our websites. We are on YouTube, we are on LinkedIn. Please do patronize us, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you everyone for being a part of this. Look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Stay safe.